The restaurant was the kind of place where conversations stayed low and polite, where crystal glasses chimed softly, and the smell of expensive food floated like a promise. Suits and dresses filled the room, quiet power sitting at every table. At the center of it all, near the wide glass window, sat Victor Hale, a well-known CEO whose name appeared in business magazines and late-night interviews. He was finishing dinner with two associates, relaxed, confident, unaware that the calm around him was about to shatter. 2 tables away, a man sat alone with a simple plate of food. His jacket was worn, his posture calm but alert. He looked ordinary, almost invisible compared to the wealth around him. A single dad who had saved up to bring his young daughter to the city for the weekend. This dinner was supposed to be a small reward. He ate slowly, eyes occasionally lifting, not staring, just noticing. Old habits never truly leave. His name was Daniel, and no one in that room knew what he had once been trained to do. The first sign was the door. It opened too fast. 5 men stepped inside, their movements sharp, out of place in a room built on quiet manners. They wore casual clothes, but not relaxed ones. Their eyes scanned the room in practiced sweeps, hands too close to their jackets. The chatter dimmed slightly, as people sensed something wrong but didn't yet understand it. Daniel noticed immediately. He didn't turn his head. He didn't freeze. His fork paused midair for just a moment. His shoulders settled. His breath slowed. This wasn't panic. This was recognition. The men spread out with purpose. One blocked the entrance. Another moved toward the staff corridor. 3 headed straight toward Victor Hale's table. When the first gun appeared, time seemed to crack. A woman screamed as a handgun flashed under the restaurant lights. Glass shattered as a warning shot hit the ceiling. Chairs scraped back violently. People ducked, covered their heads, or froze in shock. Victor Hale stood up instinctively, his face pale, hands half raised. "Sit down," one of the attackers barked, pressing the gun forward. "You're coming with us." Chaos rippled through the room. Plates crashed. Someone cried. Another man tried to run and was shoved to the ground. Daniel didn't move yet. He watched the spacing. 5 men, 2 guns visible, 1 knife at the waist. One clearly in charge, loud and aggressive. Another nervous, finger tight on the trigger. The biggest threat was the quiet one at the back, eyes cold, watching the crowd instead of the CEO. Daniel's mind worked faster than fear ever could. He slid his chair back slowly, using the noise of panic to mask the sound. His hand dipped into his jacket pocket, fingers brushing the smooth metal he always carried. Not a weapon, just a habit, a reminder. He placed it on the table, steadying himself. The attackers were focused on Victor now, shouting, demanding he move. They hadn't noticed the single dad at the next table standing up calmly, like he was simply leaving early. Daniel took 1 step, then another. The man with the knife turned first, eyes narrowing. "Hey, sit down." Daniel raised his hands slightly, palms open, voice calm. "Easy. I'm just going." The gunman laughed. "You picked a bad time to leave, buddy." That was the moment. Daniel closed the distance in a heartbeat. The first strike was silent. His hand snapped up, deflecting the gun barrel, just enough as his other elbow drove into the attacker's throat. The man dropped, choking, weapon clattering to the floor. Before the sound fully registered, Daniel twisted, kicking the knife hand sideways, breaking grip, then slamming the attacker face first into the table. Wood cracked. The knife skidded away. People screamed louder now. The leader spun, raising his gun, but Daniel was already moving. He grabbed a fallen chair, hurled it not at the man, but at his arm. Bone snapped with a sound like breaking branches. The gun fired harmlessly into the wall as the man collapsed, screaming. The quiet one at the back reacted fast, pulling his weapon up. Daniel rolled across the floor as the shot rang out, glass exploding behind him. He came up behind a waiter's station, grabbed a metal tray, and flung it like a shield. It slammed into the shooter's face, stunning him long enough for Daniel to close in and drive a knee into his chest, knocking the breath from his lungs. The last attacker ran. He didn't get far. Daniel caught him by the collar, slammed him into the doorway, and pinned him until he went limp. It was over. Seconds had passed. The restaurant was silent except for sobbing and groans. Smoke hung in the air. Victor Hale stood frozen, staring at the man now breathing heavily in the center of the wreckage. Daniel looked around, checking threats, then finally allowed himself to slow. His hands trembled just slightly, not from fear, but from the echo of something long buried. Police sirens wailed in the distance. People began whispering. Phones came out. Someone asked, "Who is he?" Victor stepped forward cautiously. You saved my life." Daniel nodded once. "You should sit down." When the police arrived, questions flew. Witnesses talked over each other, describing impossible speed, precision, control. Daniel answered calmly, never boasting, never giving more than necessary. They asked him where he learned to fight like that. He hesitated, then said quietly, "A long time ago. Somewhere I don't go back to." Victor insisted on speaking with him privately later that night. In a quiet office away from cameras, he finally learned the truth. Daniel had been a decorated combat veteran, special operations, the kind of soldier whose missions never made the news. He had left the service after losing his wife, choosing to raise his daughter instead of staying in a world of violence. "I don't do that anymore," Daniel said. "Tonight wasn't a choice." Victor studied him for a long moment. "People like you don't disappear. They just go quiet." The next morning, headlines exploded. Footage went viral. The internet named him everything from Restaurant Guardian to the Silent Veteran. Daniel ignored it all. He was at a park, pushing his daughter on a swing, smiling as she laughed. The chaos of the night already fading into something distant. But Victor Hale didn't forget. Weeks later, a letter arrived. Not money, not fame. An offer to lead a foundation protecting vulnerable families, using skills Daniel understood without violence. Daniel read it slowly. For the first time in a long while, he felt that maybe his past hadn't followed him that night to drag him back into darkness, but to remind him who he was when it mattered most. And the world learned a simple truth. Sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the one no one notices at all.